it's been a while since I've done a group ride. This is a group ride called Alex's Group Ride. It's actually a pretty big group. We'll see how it goes. It's supposed to be spirited. We'll see how I perform. I'll check in later.
So, on the extreme side of our sport, the exercise, getting out and riding your bike for recreation and basic fitness purposes, lies what we call group riding or fast group rides. Fast group rides are not a race, it's just an opportunity to take advantage of the strength and numbers of riding with a big group. What basically happens is that a number of people get to share their work, share the effort, and as a result the pack gets to move along faster. There's also the argument that there's strength in numbers when you're riding in a large group. You're easier to see from vehicles. We're able to do what we're actually legally entitled to do here, which is to be able to take the lane, and consequently it can be a lot of fun. So I'm gonna highlight a couple things that happen here, just some basic etiquette about group rides. First of all, this is my first time riding with this group. I don't know them, they really don't know me. I did see a few friends that went off with the slower group, the C group. This is actually the A group that I'm with. And when you're new to a group, you kind of lay back, kind of get a feel for what the lay of the land is, and go from there. For example, I'm not dictating the pace of the group, so I didn't go to the front and decide how fast I want to ride. I'm not bullying myself into different parts of the pace line. Initially, I stand my ground if I'm trying to ride a certain wheel. Riding a wheel just means that the person you're following. I'll kind of stay there. And eventually what starts to happen is that experienced riders start to read your body language, get a feel for how you ride, and then they get comfortable with you. Usually when you first show up for a group ride, aside from having a conversation with folks, they don't know you. They're going to be a little bit standoffish generally until they feel comfortable with you and they see that you're able to handle your bike. I don't want to make this sound braggadocious because I'm not bragging, but I have been riding my bike for a long time and I know how to handle my bike in a group ride situation. That being said, I had not been on a group ride in about 3-4 months, and this is actually a very fast group ride. And initially I gotta say, I felt a little twitchy at first, even right here where I'm going downhill, because I've done that kind of speed riding solo, but it's a little bit different when you're riding with a group because the dynamics of the wind and how it hits your body just causes you to perform different. It causes the bike to behave a little bit different. But nonetheless, I slot in and I ride, and eventually I'm going to get very comfortable on here. One of the things that sometimes you see happen is friends get together, they haven't seen each other all week or what have you, and these guys are wanting to have a chit chat. But if you look at the guy that's directly in front of me, there's a bike gap of about 2 bike lengths, 2 or 3, and at some point somebody's going to have to make that up. I don't want it to be me, so what I do is I go into that slot. He's okay with it because he's chit-chatting with his friends, but I just move up into that position because if a gap starts to grow, eventually you're going to have to work to make it up. In a little while, my friend Casey, who actually invited me to this group ride, he's going to show up, and then the ride is going to turn up a little bit. You'll see as it happens as the ride turns up a little bit. One of the things that I do want to point out on here is that I apologize ahead of time because of my speed overlay. For whatever reason, my speed is off. You'll see it going back and forth, and it's just off because I'm using a GPS on my phone rather than actually using a bike computer. So there are going to be places where it looks like it's stuck at 22 miles an hour or 23 miles an hour, and we're going much faster. My speed is generally 1 to 2, sometimes 3 miles per hour off. So just wanted to point that out. Okay, so we finally have a little bit of a speed turn up. The ride is starting to get spirited. As I mentioned earlier, my speed overlay is showing 23, 22 miles an hour. We're actually going much faster. We're going about 25, 26 miles an hour, but we're going at a steady 25, 26 miles an hour. I'm getting comfortable with the guy who's in front of me. I've paid very close attention to him. I'm watching his pedal stroke, the way how he's handling his bike, and how he's applying and releasing pressure off the pedals. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So I've gotten comfortable with him. That being said, I never stop concentrating when I'm in a group ride, because I don't need to be in a position where I'm trying to react to the person who is in front of me. I'm reacting to what that person wants to react to, or what that person is forced to react to. So I'm trying the best that I can to see 2 or 3 riders ahead. One of the things that's going to happen now is his buddy or his teammate, Quentin, who I met a few days ago, comes up and they say hi, and they're going to have a chit chat. One of the things that's going to happen here is they have a chit chat is they're very good about keeping the pace. Both of these guys are experienced racers. Quentin on the ride is actually a state champ on the track, so I know his pedigree a little bit, but I still have to pay attention to what happens to the group, because as the speed starts to pick up, if they start talking and they leave a gap and they're stronger than me and they take off to go close the gap, then I'm in a position where I have to do a whole bunch of work. So I take the corner as tightly as I can. Here you see some acceleration, and now I'm getting ready to close it down. But one of the things that I don't do is I don't burn a match, meaning I take my time getting up there. I just close it down gradually. Some people sprint to close gaps. When you sprint to close gap, that's a that's a match you've burned. You only have so many matches on any group ride, and you've got to be careful about how you use them. So again, I'm watching them ride, and I'm watching the guys who are ahead of them. If you're directly behind a cyclist and you cannot see the over his shoulder or around their body, you just move yourself out slightly, like what I'm doing right here. I'm moving myself out slightly because the camera is low, but where I'm sitting I can't see around this guy's shoulder. So I move myself over slightly, just a little bit, so that I can see past him and I can see what's going on. Even though there's a little bit of a gap between him and the guy in front of him, the gap isn't growing. So I'm comfortable, I'm getting shielded from the wind, and I've got no issues. So we're just pedaling along. Now, one of the things that I want you to notice about the guy in front of me, when you're in a pace line, you want to minimize freewheeling, and he does a very good job of this. Every once in a while, you can't help it, you're going to freewheel a little bit, but watch his pedal cadence. He's pedaling, he's pedaling, he's pedaling. When he's getting ready to adjust his speed, he doesn't necessarily just abruptly stop pedaling. You'll see where his pedaling actually starts slowing down, and he's getting ready to do it right here, where he doesn't stop pedaling. There you go. And what that does is it helps you to control your speed. You don't have to hit your brakes. You don't have to stop pedaling suddenly. You want to maintain consistent pressure on your pedals, but every once in a while, you just release the amount of pressure that you have on the pedals, and that in itself is going to slow the bike down. It's a way of keeping the pace line nice and smooth. Here we go. We got Casey in front of me, and you're gonna see Casey demonstrating very well what I spoke about in terms of your cadence. See Casey kind of easing the pressure off. He's back on it again. As people around him slow down, speed up, he's trying to control his speed. He's not freewheeling where he's stopping abruptly. He just slows down his cadence, and what that does is you can hear it. Actually, you'll hear the sound on the chain, but all that's doing is it's just he's putting less pressure on the pedals, and when you put less pressure on the pedals, it just kind of eases the bike up a little bit. The other thing that a person can do sometimes is air brake. When you air brake, you just kind of like raise your body up a little bit, let your chest catch a little bit of wind, and you're good to go. Those gestures that you just saw, Casey fist bumping Quentin, that just shows people who are comfortable with their bike handling. If you're in a group ride, you shouldn't feel pressured to do that kind of stuff if you're not comfortable with it. Those are experienced riders who know what they're doing. So Casey's moved over to the right lane. I'm gonna come up and slot in behind these two gentlemen. And again, I don't sprint to close the gap. I just ease into it. If I sprint, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cause a bigger ripple effect, or more of an accordion effect with the people who are behind me. So everything you do, you want to kind of do it methodically. You don't really want to avoid doing things abruptly. You just want to be smooth and considerate to the cyclists that are around you. Alright, so we're rolling. We're getting ready to come into a corner. We just finished an extended high-speed section. Line up for the bend. I know this guy knows how to ride his bike, so I have no worries about being on his wheel as he's hitting the corner. He stands up in pedals as we accelerate out of the bend. I usually sit in my saddle unless there's something really extreme going on, but I know that the guy in front who's leading the group, he's doing about 25 miles an hour, and I'm okay with that. I'm comfortable, and I know that they were comfortable with me squeezing in between them because I had eye contact with the guy who was on my left, and I know that Quentin wasn't getting ready to just suddenly move his bike to one direction or the other. So one thing I didn't mention is in terms of controlling your speed, you want to avoid using your brakes. In a group ride, especially a fast moving group ride where you're with experienced riders, they know what they're doing. Your brakes are kind of like for slowing for turning and for emergencies. If the guy in the front is doing 25, 26 miles an hour and he's maintaining that pace consistently, there's really no need for massive variations in pace within the pack. That happens, it means people are not paying attention. People are shooting gaps real fast to accelerate to close the gaps, and then they're slowing down suddenly. All of those things affect the harmony of the group, I'll just call it. So here we are. I'm watching this young lady because she goes from the left lane and now she's in the right lane. She actually, when she cornered, she left a little bit of a gap, which is fine. Different people corner at different speeds. The people who were around her were actually basically railing the corner, so she actually cornered at a slightly lower rate of speed than the people who were in front of her. But now I have a new wheel in front of me. person that I don't know, and I'm gonna watch her. One of the things that happens, and I should say this, everybody that I found on this ride rode extremely well. It's a very well disciplined, very well drilled group. But one of the things that, because I don't know her and I'm not familiar with the group, I'm watching her cadence. And cadence is kind of like a personal preference thing, but right here, my computer is saying we're doing 25. We're actually doing like 26, 27. And that's, to me, a high cadence for that speed. Even the guy who's next to her. Watch Casey, who is in front of the gentleman that's next to the young lady in front of me. Look at Casey's cadence, how much more controlled it is, and what that does is it gives him more stability on the bike. Casey's probably doing about 85 or so. They're doing about 95, 100 RPM in their cadence, which again, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just kind of like a personal preference thing, but it's certainly something that I pay attention to. At this point, because of the way how the wind is hitting, I've changed my body position. I'm actually in my drops because the wind is swirled. Now the wind is starting to hit me kind of like across my right shoulder. I get in the drops for aerodynamics, and I also get in the drops. Yep, speaking of drops, Casey dropped a banana peel. We have a little laugh about it. In any event, I get in the drops because one of the things that being in the drops does is it also gives me more stability of my bike. We're getting ready to make a left-hand turn, and I want you to watch what happens in front of me as we do this turn. The rider who's in front of me came out of position. It could mean that she just wanted to move to the back. It could mean that she wanted to switch lanes. I don't know. I didn't look back to see what was going on. But again, it's the kind of stuff that you have to pay attention to when you're group riding. You can't drop your concentration when stuff like that is happening. We're moving at a very high rate of speed. So any little thing that catches you off guard or catches you out could actually spell disaster on a group ride. So I paid attention to her body language as she started looking around, and I adjusted how I went into that corner based on what she was doing. Okay, so now we're getting ready to have another shift in wind direction, albeit temporary. We started heading east, and the wind is blowing directly out of the east, so we have a headwind, and dynamically you're going to see some things kind of change a little bit, not a lot in the front, but people who are comfortable in the front, they start, peeling off, taking a break, which I would too. When you're sitting there riding 25, 26 miles an hour into a headwind, you got to be a very strong, very fit person. But I'm paying attention to this because I'm coming up to where right now I think I'm like fourth or fifth wheel, and if this were to keep on much longer, as people start peeling off, it would mean that eventually I'm pulling. And I've got to say, on this ride, I know I do not have the fitness to pull this group. I could maybe get up there for a few seconds, but I'll be burning a lot of energy. By the way, that hand signal from the gentleman in front of me is just alerting the riders behind that there's an obstacle or there's some debris in the road, which is something that you do. You point things out as a courtesy to the riders behind you, because, again, remember, they're looking at you or looking at your butt or looking at the back of your wheel, and they can't necessarily see. So here we go. People are starting to pull out because it's windy. The guy who's in the front in the left lane, can't think of his name. This guy's a beast. He pulled the group the whole way from like mile 0. He never got off of the front. Even shortly when the group splits and they do like an extreme sprint, he stays on the front and he continues to grind it out. So we're getting ready to do a U-turn here. And when we do a U-turn, you're going to see, I'm not going to call it a little bit of, it's not really a regroup, but I certainly regrouped. I put myself into a position where I felt more comfortable because, like I said, I don't feel comfortable with the level of fitness that I have taking a big long pull in this group. Again, I have no problem sticking my nose in the wind for a little bit, but certainly not going to be burning matches because I would have ended up trying to find my way home by myself. All right, so we round this corner. We get a little bit of a break from the wind for a second, and what I do is I wave riders by, say, come on by, guys, come on by. The next thing that I know is happening is we're getting ready to get to a point where we sprint. Now, I want to go back, but I don't want to go too far back, so I find a nice gap. What am I, 10 riders back? And I'm going to slot in and make myself comfortable. I'm not, blocking anybody or impeding anybody or anything like that. When I looked over my shoulder to decide where I was going to jump in, there was a gap, which one of the things that's happening is the sustained effort of the speed starts to break the group up. Everybody doesn't, stay on the ride for the entire time. So some people get shelled a little bit. Some people have been resting and they're getting ready to come up here and sprint, and all kind of different things are happening. So anyway, so I know because I've been forewarned that in a short bit of time that the group is going to split, people are going to take off, and they're getting ready to go for the money. Okay, that's Markham Park to my right, and I was told that once the group goes right past Markham Park, that I'm gonna call it an A+ group develops. So you're getting ready to see a whole bunch of people sprint past us. I'm good with staying with the A group. No extreme activities for me, and there they go. All the strong guys take off. I'm gonna hang back. I'm gonna kind of let the group reform, and I'll find and establish myself where I need to be. So as things start happening, there's some gaps, and this is actually a pretty substantial gap. So I've got to accelerate to close this down. Again, I'm not sprinting like those guys, but I took it up to 30 or whatever I needed to do so that I could get on the wheel. And I'm hoping that this guy isn't leaving, because if he leaves, that puts me in the front. All right, so we're good. We're back to a double pace line. Oh, notice this. Some people who took off on that sprint, everybody isn't going to make it across. Some people who take off on that sprint, they're going to roll right back into the group, which is kind of cool. I think it's good that people, you know, test yourself, try and see what you can do. If you can't get across, you come right back. There's an example of a person, they didn't make it across, they're coming right back, and we'll see a few more who come back on the right hand side. So they've got what they've got right here. They're checking to make sure that we're on the wheels, and they're continuing to do the awesome job that they're doing of keeping it steady. This guy right here that's directly in front of me, absolute beast. The wind shifted again, and now the wind is kind of, we have a cross headwind. The wind is actually coming across the front of his shoulder, and he just stayed there and tapped it out at 25 miles an hour. A couple times I thought he was going to pull over for me to take a little break, and I had determined I was comfortable. I just had a gel. I am drinking and hydrating consistently on this ride, so if I needed to take it for a little bit, I could. But they're the designated pacers, so let the designated pacers pace. There's another guy coming back into the fold. So as we come up to this intersection, the light kind of changes on us slowly. Again, because of what I'm feeling from the wind and what I know is going on with my fitness level, I don't want to put myself into a position where I may have to pull, or I blow up and I leave a gap. So I decide ahead of time to move off of second wheel, and I'm just going to kind of like come back here, get behind the group. I'm actually going to switch sides. The reason I'm switching sides is I want to stay away from the wind. So I move over to the left lane, so I'm not just getting shielded from the rider who's in front of me. If they do this the right way, I'm also getting a little bit of a break from the wind from the guys who are in the right lane. So I've spent enough time over there, so I move over. I'm doing everything I can at this point to make sure that I'm conserving energy. I'm drinking, and I think in a little while I'm gonna have a banana, and I had a gel earlier, so at this moment I'm good. But the group's just going along, and the reason I'm kind of to the left of Casey's wheel is because the wind is blowing across our right. So I'm doing my own personal little echelon right here. As I said, I'm doing everything that I can to make sure that I stay out of the wind, that I keep myself protected, and that I save energy. We're getting ready to come up now on Glades Parkway. We're going to make a left, and when we make a left going down Glades Parkway, we kind of like go down this road that kind of swirls around, and just based on the side of the road that I'm in, due to the luck of the draw, I'm going to end up getting kind of like a little bit of a crosswind again. Because of the tropical storm, the wind is consistently swirling around. So you see the guy over there on the right lane. There was a little bit of a gap that developed. Took a little bit of time to get it shut down. I really can't remember what was going on here. The group was kind of like we lost a little bit of form. I remember some people got dropped as we turned into this. There's one guy coming back, but some people actually got dropped. The group continued to split up. We're not a very big group at this point. What you see right here is kind of what you get. I think we're less than 10 total at this point, 12 at the most. And again, you see the gentleman on the right lane. He's not getting into it. He's having a little bit of a rough time being able to shut that down and get on that wheel. This young lady that's in front of me, very impressed with her riding. Very, very strong. Very strong. Handles her bike really, really well. Very impressed with the way how she was riding her bike. We're getting close to the point where we're getting ready to make a right-hand turn, and the video kind of ends shortly after that. I wanted to point this out again. At this point of the ride, the reason why I'm riding to the right of the young lady in front of me is because the direction the wind is coming from. The wind is actually switched again, starting to come out of the east. We're actually getting ready to get a shower shortly. Actually, I shouldn't say a shower. We're getting ready to get all-out rain. So I have positioned my bike where she is between me and where the wind is swirling from. And she's actually doing the same thing with Casey the best she can. She's kind of riding a little bit of an echelon. So here we go. People are starting to pop. It looks easy, but I promise you it's not easy. People are hurting a little bit at this last stretch because of the sustained speed and because of what's going on with the wind. You got to be very strong, and you got to be very savvy about dealing with the wind, how you position your bike, and what you do to be able to save energy. One of the things that you should know if you're planning to do group rides, because people always talk about wind and aero and stuff like that, your body, when it comes to wind composition and aerodynamics, on a bike, your body constitutes about 60 or 70% of the aerodynamic drag. Not the bike, your body, your human body. So you learn how to get aero, wear the right type of outfit, so you're not being dragged around in the wind and things like that. That's important. And when you're riding behind another rider, you're actually saving about 30% of your energy. So I come up here to Casey. I'm going to ask Casey if I don't know if this group stops to take a break or if they keep rolling. He tells me that they keep rolling. So I'm like, okay, I'm good with that because I've eaten, so I'm okay. And that's kind of it, guys. We're getting ready to run out of film here. I hope that this tutorial was helpful. You learned something, or it entertained, motivated you to be able to get out there and do some group rides. Again, there are some skills that you've got to learn. Make sure that you're comfortable. Don't jump into an A group ride on day one. Start with a C group, even if you feel that you're stronger than that. Start with a C group, progressively move up to a B group, and ultimately you'll be able to ride A groups with no problems. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.
Casey and I just wrapped up a ride. We just rode the Alex ride. Good ride?
Yes, yeah, ride 84. Wonderful. Yes.
We just stayed in the pocket. But it's a good ride, good safe ride. I definitely give the ride 2 thumbs up. Even with the funky weather we're having. Good ride.